906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Blades Bait and Tackle, your hardwater connection to Little Beatty Knock. It's the beginning of a new year, and that means it's time to transition from hunting back to fishing. We'll take a look at some of the ice fishing opportunities available here in the Upper Peninsula. 9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. .906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours. The ice fishing season is upon us. Walleyes, pike, bluegill, perch, trout, whitefish, jigging, tip-ups, spearing, pop-up tents, permanent shacks, dark houses, you name it, you can find it all across the Upper Peninsula. No matter where you live in the UP, you don't have to travel far to find a place to ice fish for one species or another. Hitting the ice on a small backwoods lake for panfish is a UP pastime that's hard to beat.
That ain't too little. It's a bluegill. Two. That's why it wasn't too little. A lot of times when we fish in deeper water, it's tough to get your line to go down, especially if you're not inside of the shack because the wind is blowing and that. So instead of putting a sinker above it, we put another jig above it to help weight it down. You put 1 jig on the bottom, 1 jig above it, and then a lot of times when you're in the deeper water, they'll bite your sinker. You know, and you'll be getting a lot of hits and you can't hook anything. It's because they're actually biting your sinker. They're not biting your line, your bait. So this way it eliminates that. Your sinker is another hook. It's a lot easier too. You have 2 different colors down there, 2 different setups.
2 different depths.
2 different depths. Yeah, you're giving a little better presentation. You know, sometimes they prefer one lure only. Sometimes they'll eat both. Depends how they're feeding for the day, but seems to make it a lot better than putting sinkers on and getting them hitting on your sinkers.
That's a nice
better one.
I wasn't getting any bites.
Most of these fish are suspended 4 to 5 feet from the bottom, and you're set up to fish normally. You know, most people's thinking is we're going to fish 6 or 8 inches off the bottom. If you do that, you're dropping past the fish and you're fishing below them. The only hope you have is that when you're dropping down that one picks it up on the way down. With this, you can see that fish, you know, where he is in the water column, and then you can target him directly where he's at. You know, if he's 25 feet of water and the fish is 14 feet off the bottom, you can see it on here. You watch your lure go right down to the same level as your fish is at. Put a direct target on him that way, you know, I mean, and without that, you're just fishing blind, you're guessing. It's a big difference in whether you're catching fish or just fishing for fish.
You can see my jig when I'm moving it up and down like that, going up and down. That's a fish right there. And he's more in the center of the cone. You can tell by the color. If it's red, in fact, he's looking at it right now. If you come up to it, I chased him away. Must have hit him in the head. But depending on the color, if it's green, he's further away from the center of the cone that's in the water. As it turns orange, he's getting closer, and red is in the center of the cone. And that's kind of how you tell where that fish is in relation to your jig, because your jig is in the center of the cone too. There's a couple of them down there. Those lines are other fish down there.
As long as it reads quickly,
yep.
You move your
so you're
line.
Looking at real time.
Yeah, you move your line, you need to see that line move. You know, when it goes up, you need to see it. It's falling, you need to see it. And then you can see what that fish does, you know, according to what you do. If you're jigging too fast and he swims away, you need to slow down. If you slow down and they're interested, that's what the key is for the day. Otherwise, maybe more aggressive or taking it away from them. It's all a game. See this one coming? He's coming right at it. He's almost there. He should be biting. There he is. Just that easy.
Oh, that's a good one too. Fun fish.
.906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Christ, your Northwoods neighborhood store.
That's what jumbo perch is all about.
It'd be pretty hard to talk about perch fishing in the UP without mentioning Lake Gogebic.
What the deal is that they're staging, getting ready to spawn. So we're targeting these transition areas off the steep breaks where it transitions into the mud. And these perch are down there feeding on the wigglers that are coming up out of the mud. Wiggler is the mayfly that we see in the during the open water season. But that's what these guys are down there feeding on.
Jumbo perch on Lake Gogebic.
I got a dropper on here, so I have a weight above my jig, and I'm watching my sonar unit here, and I'm dropping my jig down into that mud and shaking it up a little bit, just pounding it. You want to stir it up, and it causes a little commotion, that plume, rising up off bottom there, and bring it up. But this is a much more subtle presentation where I'm just, as you can see, I got kind of this is an ultralight rod. A noodle rod is probably even a better choice. I'm just kind of rolling it down there. I'm not really jigging it, but I'm just rolling it, just keeping that tip wiggling a little bit. Dead sticking. I got another rod right next to me here that's we call dead sticking, and it's just hanging there. And every once in a while, I'll come over here and just tap it a little bit like that, just to get a little movement out of it. And I can actually see both jigs down there with the Vexler in this hole. What you want for perch fishing is either a super ultralight or a noodle rod. You want that flex in there like this. If you're not feeling the strike, you're seeing it with your rod tip. So you want a really light, flexible rod tip. A lot of guys are putting spring bobbers on here, and they will extend off the tip of their rod there past the last eye, and they're super sensitive, so you'll see that just go down like that.
That's a nice fish.
But those big perch, they're coming up after these spoons. They're not really too intimidated. Although that last fish I caught, I had one or two come in before that. They came right up to it, looked at it, and went away. So then I downsized to a smaller jig, and it seemed to be the ticket. That was probably about a 13.5-inch perch, female. I set the hook on it, and I had my drag set kind of light. So as long as you're taking your time, bring that fish up relatively slow, they're going to be fine to release. Look at that perch. Look at that perch. Oh my God. Look at that. That's what we get on Lake Gogebic. So I just dropped down to this smaller jig. I was using something a little bit more mammoth because of the size of these guys, girls. And this isn't even as big as they get. So this one is actually in real good shape because I took my time with her. She's just fine. She didn't blow her stomach. So this is a good spawning female. I'm going to release this fish. Right down she goes.
Lake Gogebic is the Upper Peninsula's largest inland lake, so of course it's home to more than just jumbo perch.
There we go. A little on the small side, but Gogebic walleye. This walleye, I don't know, he's probably around that 13.5-inch range, I'd guess, which is very common on Gogebic. Gogebic is a real walleye factory, so we're kind of known for numbers of fish, not necessarily trophy class, not that we don't catch any large fish, but the ranges between about 13 and 16 inches is the most common fish that you catch. One thing on Gogebic is that we got a new regulation in place now. You can still have 5 walleyes per day. 2 of those fish can be between 13 and 15 inches, and the other 3 still have to be over 15. So it allows the anglers to still go home with a meal. So it's been real good. This is a number 7 jigging Rapala. This is an orange and gold that we're using right now. We're using number 6-pound test line. And if I go up the line here a little bit, if you see this swivel in the line, this is always a good thing to do, especially when you're fishing with a jigging Rapala like this, because these baits spin, they go in circles. Sucker minnows, and I'm just gonna hook them through the nose like that, and I'm gonna pinch it off here behind the gills like that. So you got some good fresh scent, and and bait down there as we're jigging that. There we go. Look at that. That's a beautiful looking walleye. Gogebic, they got such a beautiful golden color. They don't get like the white or pale that they are in a lot of lakes. They keep that nice, most of the time, that deep gold color on them. It makes them so pretty. Just nailed it on that bottom treble. If we're jigging one rod, we'll use a slip bobber setup, which is going to be very similar to the same thing that we're doing with the tip-ups. We're using about a number 8 treble hook, tied right to our monofilament. Just a little bit above that, we got our couple of split shots to keep it down there. Same method that we're using with the tip-up, except we're just fishing in the shack, so we're using a slip bobber, which slides up and down the line. There's a little bead between the bobber and the stop, and of course there's a knot that gets tied on the line here, so you can set the proper depth, and then the knot will just reel right up into your line, just like summertime fishing. And then we're just hooking a sucker minnow on here. Hook the minnow just kind of back towards the back of the dorsal fin there, and we'll drop them down. Well, that one took her right down. You know, with Gogebic, with the number of walleyes that we catch out here, and being able to catch and keep a couple of these fish that are between 13 and 15 inches, honestly, in my opinion, these are the best eating fish that we got between this size. You know, they fry up just wonderful, and they taste better. You know, a lot of people maybe eat big fish, and it's always great to catch a bigger one, but I'll tell you, these are going to be the best tasting fish of the day.
906 Outdoors is brought to you by Race Driven, your source for premier power sports products. There are an estimated 20,000 dark house fishermen in Michigan who enjoy the sport of spearing. This historic form of angling has been practiced by die-hard fishermen for over 2 centuries. It's as much a tradition as it is a sport.
It's about 16 feet of water here, and the fish that we're targeting here go out and suspend in the big lake, and then they'll feed out there, and they'll come in here. You don't see herring and whitefish in here, and even smelt you don't see in here because it's too shallow. So you know that's where they're out, and then they come back in and lay around until that's digested. Every big fish that is in the belly of the ones we spear are all taken in from the head, and that's why when they'll come in and they'll hit the decoy, they'll injure it, and then they'll come back in and they'll grab it by the head and then suck it in. The term dark house is because there's no windows in here. You use the light that comes through the ice, and the fish don't see you up here. For getting into spear fishing, you don't have to have a fancy wooden shack. As long as you got most of it's dark as you can, so you don't have any light behind you, so the fish can see the movement. Because as soon as anything comes above them and moves, they spook. I mean, that's just their instinct. So that's all you need. And a spear, any sport shop has them, but you want to get a spear that has good big barbs. A lot of the ones that you'll buy, they put them on a bandsaw, metal bandsaw, and they'll just cut it in, and then they'll pull that out. It doesn't hold the fish. You really have to sink your spear into that fish, and good spears are expensive, anywhere from $75 up to $300. This is a $300 spear right here. Your spear is as important to fishing or spearing as it is, shotgun or a rifle is to hunting. Look at 2 of them. Oh, that one! I saw that one last week with the screwed up tail on it. The decoys, you don't have to carve them. There's a lot of decoys, and they all work. They don't have to be wood, and they don't have to be decorative. And even if you want to take a red and white daredevil, take the hooks off or leave the hooks on and just jiggle it. There's a lot of decoys out there that guys make that are just a flat piece of wood. They've got different colors on it. It's anything to get those fish to come in within the distance that you want to, so you can throw the spear and harvest. The other thing is you don't throw the spear. You put the head of the spear in the water first, and you just put it in there, because if you splash it in like that, before you release it, the fish is going to be gone. Hold your hand right here like this, and then push it. You just push it. And the other thing is that when you've got the head of your spear is below the water, there's no refraction. You lead it, and if you got a fish coming in or going out, you want to throw at the head, and the best place that you'll normally hit it is right at the base of the fish's skull. About 32, I'd say. There. That's a good eating size right there.
If northern pike's not on your menu, give whitefish a try.
A pike will come in and they'll hit the decoy most of the time, but what the whitefish do is they just think it's another whitefish, and they'll come in and see if it is or if it isn't. They'll come in on the side, so most of your when you throw your spear, it's going to be on the side. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting the decoys, one decoy out on either side of the shack. It's about 5 feet on either side of the shack. And lo and behold, it doesn't bother them. Maybe they think it's a school or what. They start coming in right underneath the decoys. One scares them, and multiple ones obviously don't. So. Got him. I'll watch this one get off of there now. Oh yeah. That looks about the same size. That's the smallest one I've got yet. That one stuck. Now see how they can go out? They're powerful there. Hopefully he doesn't get off. Oh, I got him good. Tell you right now. There we go. There we go. And out we go.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works, home of Michigan's largest custom knife factory showroom.
So when you're not seeing fish in the wintertime, you don't really want to move around a whole lot. So you want to get a lure that has rattles in. So I'm using a buckshot rattle spoon and glow in the dark because of the tannic acid. You got visual, you got rattles for sound, and you're pounding the bottom. So they hear that, they feel it, and then when the glow in the dark, they can get a visual on it. But by the time they come over, they're excited because you've pounded the bottom so much, you get the dust and muck off the bottom that's settled over the years to just get a big cloud. People think that the cloud interferes with catching the fish. Well, the fish see that, they hear it, they coming over because they think fish are feeding off of something on the bottom. They see all this dust, it's like, wow, there is fish feeding on the bottom. They rush into that dust looking for where the food is to get their fair share, and they just grab whatever's there, and that's your lure. The other thing that we did here today, we split the difference between 6 and 2 pound and put 4 pound on today. So you just got to look at your situations, what type of fish may be here, and there's probably some pike here too. So 4 pounds going to be more than adequate if you got your drag and or you're prepared with a good reel, and you want to downsize on your reels too when you're fishing so that it doesn't outbalance. It's a nice little balanced outfit right here. It balances when it's in my hand right here so that I'm not really gripping that rod, that ice rod. I'm just holding it and cupping it in my hand. As you see, it balances right there with just the weight of the reel and the rod tip right out there, and a little bit of the down pull from the little jig that's on the end of this. So I can jig it like this, and a lot of times when if you don't have to hold onto the rod like that, and you can just have it sit in your hand, if a fish hits it, a bigger fish like a walleye or a pike or something, you'll feel it because immediately it'll outbalance that rod just with a slight hit from a bigger fish like that. Whereas if the reel's so heavy and so big, or the rod's so big it outbalances everything. It's not as easy to detect even a bigger fish's bite. So getting balanced equipment will allow you to detect every subtle kind of hit you're going to get from any kind of fish you're going to get.
Of course, a look at ice fishing in the UP wouldn't be complete without spending some time fishing for pike and walleye on one of the many bays of the Great Lakes.
Nice. That's how we do it. Look at that.
Fish on, baby.
We'll let them eat her a little bit. Oh, is this a dandy?
There we go. Yeah, 27 and a half. Fat little hog.
Got him? Yeah. Heavy?
Oh, Jesus.
That guy's not that big.
Think I caught something.
We just missed about 45 incher.
Really?
Broke that. Here it comes. 20 feet.
Put your hand in there, guy.
Here we go. Let's see if we can. Oh, there we go again.
Are you kidding me? Oh my god. That's a monster. Woohoo!
Let him put his head past that hole one more inch than he was getting.
About 40 and a half, yep.
Little beta knock. Little piece of God's country.
Feel free to join us on Facebook or visit us at 906outdoors.com. And while you're there, be sure to sign up to get on the 906 Outdoors email list. We'll send you an occasional email with tips, recipes, and more. You'll also be eligible for giveaways just for being on the list. Thanks for watching, and we invite you to join us next week for another adventure right here on 906 Outdoors.